Mrs. McGlynn.
What's that?
Thank you for the tea.
Tea? Corned beef and cabbage?
Mrs. Hudson?
Still nursing a sick friend, I'm afraid. She sent round Mrs. McGlynn this morning. Cousin, several times removed.
Ah, I see. She's in mourning.
Yes, her husband died 30 years ago.
Oh, the Irish are a sentimental people.
Come in.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
I am he, and who are you?
Turner's the name. Mrs. Turner.
How may I be of assistance to you?
It is I who wishes to be of assistance to you, sir. I was given to understand by a neighbour that your Mrs. Hudson is currently indisposed, and I am here to offer myself as a replacement, cooking and washing and the like.
I'm afraid you're a little late. Mrs. Hudson has already...
I wasn't very hard, sir. No one works harder than what I do. I think you'll find my fee quite modest.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
Might you be interested?
Oh, I'm interested, all
You
right.
are?
I'm interested in how a day of back-breaking work, hauling coal, which you have just come from, has not left a trace of dust on your shoes or clothes, but has, in fact, yes, managed to scent your hair with lavender.
You win, Oscar. He said you would.
Who said I would?
You can come in now. It's over. You've won.
Most satisfying all retorts. I told you so. Good evening, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Wilde, always a surprise, even when you're expected. And Mrs. Turner.
Ah, Helen, formerly of Troy. Better known to the clamorous multitudes as
Mrs. Lily Langtry, or the Jersey Lily.
Are you working on a play now, Mr. Wilde?
Yes, Mrs. Langtry, actually. But I'm afraid I won't be requiring your services for this one.
Glad to hear it. And what's the latest call?
The importance of being forthright. There is a perfect part for her, Gwendoline, but she insists that she's too old.
I am too old. Gwendolyn should be in her 20s, not 40.
But 40 is a very attractive age. London society's full of women of the very highest birth who have, of their own free choice, remained 40 for years. We'll begin just after my proposal of marriage to Gwendolen. Mr. Worthing, we'll start there.
Oh, she's just a robot, isn't she? Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, but you were not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, should his health permit, will inform you of the fact.
Was I satisfactory?
Ah, admirably done, my friend.
Dr. Watson, you missed a performance that surely would have gone down in the annals of theatrical history, had anyone had the opportunity to witness it.
I must admit, for a moment there during my performance, I felt a surge of something like, say, cocaine in my veins.
Had I not been apprised of the gambit on my way in, I'm not sure that I would have known.
You knew?
I felt that I may need Mr. Wilde's assistance at some point, and I wanted to ready him in case of any possible violence.
He was in love. Really, truly in love. He wanted to divorce Alexandra and marry me.
The Prince of Wales, giving up the throne for the woman he loves. Not bloody likely.
Give the lady sight! Mrs. Langtry, allow me to introduce myself. I am Professor Moriarty. I hope you haven't been terribly inconvenienced by this slight detour.
Would it matter?
No. Your new friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, will be arriving soon. How would you like to save his life?
I have come to rescue my friend, Mrs. Langford.
How gallant.
And you should be ashamed of yourself, Mrs. Hawley.
My name is Kitty Dupre.
Oh, not much of an improvement over Irma.
You idle weed!
Counterfeit.
Silence! Smythe, I thought I told you it was an unimaginative mind that immediately turns to fire.
He sees. Roddick jumped in, this gentleman shot him in the arm, blood all over. Flynn's taken to the doctors now, but Roddick managed to wrestle the gun from him. He wasn't called king of them for nothing, you know.
I hadn't heard you were a violent man, Mr. Holmes.
I'm not.
The playwright, he'll give you no trouble.
Oh, you think not, do you?
I think that you would rather avoid any action that might muss up your empire. Farewell.
Look at you. In case you haven't noticed, there's a lady present. Ladies present.
And I am somewhat of an expert on tobacco ash. Perhaps you've heard?
I'll say I have.
This is my latest specimen, and not without merit. Fresh cork.
So what?
Those iron bars look rusty to me.
That seems like none of my concern.
It might be to some poor devil who's been caught in a trap. Ah, yes. And then when you told us your Christian name, well...
Bloody hell, if you ain't some kind of machine.
Good God, don't you, babe? You smell like rotten vegetables.
Stop moving about.
Why? Are you afraid that I'll do something?
And what could you do? Shoot him, you fool!
I can't see.
He's over there! Follow the cigar! He's by the window! Here's something to remember me by, Mr. Holmes!
You'll find a cigar there. We'll see ourselves there.
Hey!
Come back.
Oh yes. I went into action when I realized that Livy had been taken against her will. Mr. Holmes had instructed me to stay with you at all times, since he was now aware that Mrs. Torrey was not your dedicated servant. But then you insisted on going out, unencumbered, as you put it.
Mrs. Langtry, I gave you specific instructions to remain at home for your own safety. What could have possibly enticed you?
I needed to, I don't know, to think, to be alone.
I often need time to myself to replenish here.
Just anywhere, Mrs. McLean.
Careful, that's precious cargo. Oh, where are my cucumber sandwiches? Oh,
Oh dear.
not you again.
See, Mr. Holmes, you're not the only one who can impersonate a woman. I mean,
No, you got it right the first time.
it's wise not to push Kitty Dupre, my friend.
Dupre? Is that French?
And what's wrong with being French?
I think you just asked.
Stop!
Good God! Where did you come from?
The teacup!
How the world I suspect that Professor Moriarty's talents are not all in his head. And may I suppose that you are double-jointed, sir?
You may.
Why the delay in your entrance?
Kitty. She's in a bit of a financial bind at present. I told her she could get the £10,000 on her own. She was welcome to it. You know, ladies first. F.A. Excellent.
You've been more loyal to me than any man I've ever known.
Please don't say that.
I think perhaps I have affected you in some small way. Come, Oscar, we'll see if there's a cat to be found.
You were very brave tonight, Oscar.
Really? You're not just saying that.
No.
Well, I'm very suspicious of compliments, you know. That's why I attach great importance to your being
Ernest.
the importance becomes earnest.
Good night, Mr. Wyatt.
Oh, good night. Good night.